evening and welcome to another learning journey sponsored by the Healing Journey. We want to welcome you this evening. It's been a moment since we've been here with you, and we know that the temperature has changed outside, but we still have the warmth in our hearts today, able to help you. We come to you this evening looking at our subject is preparing for release. We thought that would be an important subject as many at the end of the year are going to be released. And how do you prepare? You don't want to be caught off guard. So we just want to thank you. Again, we are Our Lessons Learned. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And as you get all those postcards at the end of the year to give money to Wounded Warrior and all those things, don't forget about Our Lessons Learned Incorporated. We operate on grants and on donations. So please remember us. Don't forget about our race that's coming up January the 10th. The first of January, I think it's January the 10th. Don't forget about our race. The flyer has been put on here. This year, it is $20 per person. It's open to families as well. So bring the children out. Have a great day and a great break with us. Lee, welcome.
Thank you, and welcome to our audience out there in listening land, so to speak. It's so good to be here, and as you said, I just hope each and every one is somewhere nestled in comfort and inside and warm. It's about 37 degrees here. And it's Dean Martin saying, way back then, baby, it's cold outside.
Yes, I got you. So again, we want to welcome Dr. Melissa White. She's been with us before, and she has firsthand information, just like Lee does, on preparing for release, and emotionally, financially, socially, relationship-wise. We just want to cover little things with you this evening, so you're not caught off guard, so you can prepare. If it's 18 months, you need to start preparing now. My family has put together something because it's 18 months and my son will be home. But we need to prepare now because it's been so long. There are different needs and things of that nature. So we want to start with the mindset and the planning there, setting those clear goals, writing a reentry plan, and building resilience. And welcome, Dr. White. I'm going to call you Melissa if you don't mind.
That is quite all right.
Yes. So, Melissa, tell us about the preparation, that major life transition from prison to, preparing for release. What did that look like for you?
Well, for me, living in the house with myself and my daughter, and my stepson was here at the time. Getting ready for release was just making sure that everybody was on board, and everything was put together, set up, I guess you could say. That for me, considering I know I'd given my testimony in the last time. PPP had not made it very easy for us at all, because he was out on probation. He was put back in on very bogus violations. A long laundry list that they knew the judge wouldn't read through, of just bogus things. Myself and the program director where he was staying read through it, and we were just shocked that the junk that they put on there. And so, when all of that happened, PPP would not let him move into the home once we got married. And so I'm still reeling from that. So for me, we had been married a little over a year before he got to come home. And so it was a very big adjustment, because, here we are married, but we've never had the time to live with one another, to kind of get that, I guess you would call it a pattern going at the house. And so it was a whole new ball game, especially for him. He's never been married before. So, making sure that there was room for him, there were a place for him and his things. I have to say my daughter was a great help. And my stepson, wonderful help, making sure that everything was put together. But it was, it was a challenge.
Yeah.
Just a whole bucket list of things that I didn't even realize or think would have to be done.
Yes. And that's something I can just, you have to gather the documents and ID, the release papers. You have to confirm a place to stay, before release. And there's so many things, make sure that your family's supportive, your friends are supportive, your transitional housing, if you can't, it's just so much.
See, here's the weird thing, where they did all of that before when he came out in transitional housing. I never once heard from the Department of Corrections. They never called to verify that, everything was okay here, that even though we were married, was he still welcome to come home? Not one contact. And see, that was one of the things that I was prepared to get, but never got. And so that actually gave me some anxiety.
Yeah.
Well, not some anxiety, a lot of anxiety, because I'm like, what's wrong? Because I've grown to have a severe lack of trust when it comes to SCDC. No offense.
Yeah, exactly. And I can empathize with you with that. Lee, what did you have to do to prepare for your son coming home?
Well, there was so much that had to be done. On the inside, I remember from speaking with him before he came home and stuff. And he was part of, when he was there, part of his credits and stuff came from teaching a class that prepared them for coming home with writing the resumes and that sort of thing. Or so they had to go through that. I think he called it a phase 3 or something. Mm-hmm. But supposedly they, the incarcerated individual that's coming home, they kind of ask that, or they try to go through creating a detailed plan as far as coming home and stuff and securing housing. You got to arrange transportation. You got to think about that day that you're released, who's picking you up, and you got to make sure that your vehicle is secure and all of these things. You can't take photos. There's so much on that day of release that you have to prepare for. Also, you got to get identifications and stuff that have to get together. So many things you have to do on the inside that you have to prepare for. So they say on the outside on that day of release, and coming home to home or the transitional homes that you're going, that you have to secure. And it's also important also that you have a support system that's there for your family, your community of friends, loved ones or so. And that's very, very, very important that you have that in place too, so that they can welcome you with those open arms or so. But for the incarcerated, or inmate, that it's also very new or different and stuff. It's like going from the dark into the light. And you know how it takes you a little time to get your eyes together and stuff so that you can see when you come out of that dark and stuff. So it takes time. It takes time.
I can just
imagine for it.
There's so much involved there. Also, job skills, building job skills, connecting with reentry programs, employment programs that are out
all
there.
About that one.
Yeah, connecting with that. I'm sure you do, Melissa. And get identification, state ID, social security card, birth certificates. Those are essential for jobs and for benefits and things of that nature. Right now, if your loved one has time left, have them get some skills from where they are. There are a lot of classes that they can enroll in, such as carpentry and things of that nature, just to get some basic job skills down. And then set a basic budget. Because I'm going to tell you, if they're on parole, they will have to pay. So set a basic budget. Melissa, did you have that payment? Did he have parole? And did you have to make payment?
No. Once he came out this last time, He had fulfilled his full sentence, and so there was no probation, there was no parole. He was done, and so he was simply released. Now, as far as like aligning him a job, I had connected with a friend of ours who was also formerly incarcerated, but was working for a grading company in the area. And I knew my husband was a heavy machine operator. And so his first job, he had it within less than 2 weeks from his release. He took the first week and, got himself acclimated again to the outside. And then the week after that, went to work for the grading company. So I made sure to have that lined up. I already had Voc Rehab because I had a connection there through my being on the board with one of the transition homes in this area, New Creation. And so I knew someone from Voc Rehab. I was already in contact with her. I already had his appointment set up. So again, with me having to learn the ropes when he went in December 1st of the previous year, I was again having to do it on my own, but this time I had a little more knowledge behind me because I even had the wherewithal when that happened, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. I called his employer at the time and told them what happened so that he would not be blacklisted as a no-call, no-show. And so that when he got back, his job would be protected if he wanted to go back to that job. So I felt like a secretary off and on, making sure that everything was, all the T's were crossed, all the I's dotted, everything, all my ducks were in a row. And so making sure everything was ready for him to come out so that he didn't have any stress on him trying to find a job, trying to get into Voc Rehab, trying to, navigate it himself. I went ahead and took care of all that and had everything lined up before his release date.
Okay, that's wise. Lee, I'm sure you did basically the same thing.
That's very important also, because although they were pretty structured when they were in and stuff, when they come out, there's so many things that they have right in front of them that you kind of still need to make sure that everything is done the way that's supposed to, because that system is waiting for you,
Yes.
not to dot that I.
Mm-hmm.
Not to cross that T, so that they
really
can
are
get right back into the system. So make sure that you're there with them to know all of what they're supposed to do, and make sure that they're doing things in a timely fashion and they're doing all that they're supposed to do as far as parole or probation or whatever they have to show up to make sure that they do those things. And if there's any reason why they can't, that you're in touch with them to let them know so that they will not be marked or brought back in and stuff. And let me tell you, they have some tricks that they will play with you and stuff. So be very much aware that when they say, "Oh, don't worry about it" and stuff, if there's any way that you can get them or make sure that they're supposed to be where they're supposed to be, get them there, because that "oh, don't worry about it" ended up being a concern for my son also. They said, "Oh, don't worry about it, we got you." So, and then they did on one of those situations too, which they said that they weren't receptive. But sometimes they play little games and stuff with you. Make sure that you're doing all that you're supposed to do and not depending or thinking that they are your friend, because they're not.
No, exactly. My husband, whenever when he called me one day and I told him everything I had lined up, I said, "I've got you set. This is because he was taking release classes." And so ironically, his next release class pulled him to the side and said, "Well, you got to make sure you got to invoke rehab. You got to do this." I mean, they gave him this whole list, and I think they gave him a piece of paper. He goes, "Well, my wife's already done all that." And they're like, "Oh," he said, it shocked them to know that I already had everything set in line. And he even gave them the dates that he was supposed to be there and the times. And they were like, "Wow, your wife's really on top of everything." And, he had heard several times, by me being on top of things, that kept them more in line. Because that is the one thing that you've got to remember when you're advocating for your loved one in the Department of Corrections. You've got to be there. You've got to be in the know. You've got to have those connections going. You've got to be ready to advocate, and don't be shy when you do. Don't be mean, don't be rude, but let them know I'm watching. One of our pastors told us one time, he said, Melissa, I promise you. He said, because I advocated it for him, and I'm like, I think I'm going to make it worse for him. He said, no, ma'am. He said, now they know he has a watchdog outside the walls that is keeping an eye on them to know that they can't cross that line. And he said, and you probably won't have any issues from here on out.
That's right. We've had to do that. And, I think that scheduling medical and mental health appointments prior to them getting out, because, mental health wise, they go through a lot in there. So,
yes.
Getting them that mental health visit, and, making sure they stay substance free, and continuing medications. And if they've started therapy in there, you want to make sure that that is done. Melissa, you were going to say something about mental health.
What I didn't expect was for him in just that year, because he told me and shared with me a lot that I never even imagined. He told me that when he went back in, this time when he went in, he thought he was done, got put back in. He got pretty defeated. But he said, but not only did I get defeated, I had gained something in that time out. Okay. That I was afraid. Well, he didn't use the word afraid, but he said, basically he was afraid that he would lose as a result of him being put back in. So somewhere along the way, he had resolved himself to think that, he said, I was actually halfway expecting you to walk away from me.
Wow.
And never look back. And he said, and I kind of prepped myself for that to happen. And that affected him, even though I was there day after day, and every phone call that I could take, I was there. I answered no matter what. And even when he came home, it was like in his mind, he couldn't make himself believe that I hadn't gone anywhere and I wasn't going to go anywhere. Yeah. And so that was something that we had to work through. And even in all that, it kind of took him a little deeper into the institutionalized mindset. Because when I met him, he was starting to feel that freedom. But then this knocked him back more than one peg. It knocked him back a couple of pegs.
Yeah.
To where he's like, now he's waiting on the other shoe to drop.
Wow.
And so I don't think the loved ones understand that is something that goes through their mind. The more they have to lose, or when they have a setback like that, that really affects their mental health to the point to where they do wait for that other shoe to drop.
Yes. I believe you. They go through so much stress and anxiety. The family does on the outside, but you have no idea what they go through on the inside, the stress, the anxieties, and, about safety, we worry about their safety, their health, and things like that. But they also worry about not being familiar with the world today. If they've been in for some time, how the stigmas, they're stigmatized now. So they worry about things of that nature as well. And these are all the things that we as loved ones have to help them work through. And that is something that is, is something that is needed. My son told me, he said, Mom, everything has been taken from me. Everything. And I said, you know what? I said, God's got a plan. He's gonna restore what the cankerworm has stolen. He said, well, I wish he would come on. I said, he will. I said,
he will.
Just read Job and read the story of Joseph, and I said, that will give you hope. That will give you hope.
You know what gave me hope throughout the whole time was when the angels came in and pulled Peter out of the prison.
Yes.
I read that scripture so many times.
Yes.
And I just, kept going back and back. I'm like, Lord, send your angels in to bring him home. This was unjust. It was unjust.
Yes.
And so, that I understand what, finding that hope in scriptures.
Yes, I do too, Melissa. And I just say the same thing. I said, God, please let your miracle power come forth. you know? So I declare and decree it shall be done. And for
Yes.
us as loved ones, we have to keep learning because we're
Oh yeah.
constantly learning about the system. We're
Yes, we
learning,
are.
we are, and we're learning about social justice and the changes that need to be made. And this is where, you know, we can help and advocate. And Melissa, you said that you advocate, and that
Mhm.
is so wise and so good. It's getting together, and that's what we do from our lessons learned. We advocate for the loved ones and we help them through this transition period because going in is a transition, being in there is a transition, and coming out is a transition.
The
It
front
is.
So
and
it's
back.
a transitional period in all of our lives as well, especially
Mhm.
through um, the parole, knowing the supervisor conditions, paying attention to deadlines. That's all on us as well. So
Mhm.
those are things that are very, very important, that well-being. And like I said before, helping them with the shame and the stigmas. Some families face judgment and discrimination from their, you know, community or their workplace, anger and
Mhm.
resentment. There's so much anger
Yes.
that our loved ones have. And Lee, we've talked about that. And then the hope and fear about release. So, what can help them is open, honest communication before the release. You know, toughen that skin up because this is
Mhm.
going to happen.
Yes.
Society still does not forgive you sometimes, but you have
Mhm.
to move forward and not let that happen. Also, family counseling, you know, that can help. And then patience, rebuilding trust takes time and consistency. And I think that's one thing is rebuilding the trust.
Mhm.
And one thing that I would encourage loved ones to do other than advocate, be there, be present, try to a step ahead, plan for those things like I said, voc rehab, etc. But once they get home, because see, like my husband explained to me, there were things that he endured that he didn't tell me about, and he will
Yeah.
not tell me about.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I do not press him. If
Mhm.
he ever wants to tell me, he's welcome to, but I will not press him. So if there's something when your loved one comes home, um, don't press them to be open
Good
about
input.
what
Yeah.
they went through because you may not want to know yourself what
Yes.
they had to endure.
That's right.
Yes.
Um, and because see, the first 8.5 years of his 10-year sentence looked way different than his last 11 months after his violation was put through. Because when he was in there for the 8.5 years, he didn't have anybody. He had like one person that visited him a couple of times in those 8.5 years. But this second time around, when it hit him the heaviest, I was there every other weekend. As long as my funds allowed me to drive, I kid you not, 3.5 hours, 3 to 3.5 hours, one way,
Lynn.
one way,
Mm.
every
I
other
just
weekend.
did it. I know. I just
Yeah.
did it. I just came back Saturday night. I drove 4.5 hours to get there, saw him for
Yep.
2, and drove 6.5 hours home. So believe
Mm.
me, I know. And it's you know, he did mention, he said you couldn't handle what, you know, happens in here. He said, so
Yes.
I can't even tell it because you can't
No,
handle it.
Yeah.
So thank you. That was wise um, you know, information. Don't press it.
don't
Yeah.
press it.
And
Yeah.
it's important that you keep that communication open and let
Mhm.
them speak and talk about it when they're ready to. But
Yes.
Yes.
we're going to be in they're stripped of so much
Yes.
of their person when they're there. And so I think it's also important that when they come home that we remind them that they are still a person of worth. They are valued and we love them, that they're still, their home and it's all new, but it's behind you for the most
Yes.
part and you can move forward and stuff. So they are still good people.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See, my husband, uh, well, I've had several friends who have been incarcerated, and they have all told me that at one point in time while they were in there, that they've had a CO who was a good person and would talk to them frequently, have told them that during their training, one of the things they are taught to do is dehumanize the inmates. So your loved one is going through a daily process for those that take that job seriously, or take that directive or training of their job seriously, to where they have been dehumanized to a point to where they don't even know who they are anymore a lot of times. And so, I think by putting that out there and making that known to the loved ones, to understand that when they come home, they've been called the scum of the earth. They've been called the scum of the earth the entire time they've been in there by the majority of the COs that are in the prison.
Yes. And that's a mental health implication right there,
Mhm.
working past that, that's traumatizing for them. So, it's working. So, the first things to do was schedule the dentist, schedule those things because
Yes,
they don't get it in there. And
that is
then
correct.
you have to look at all of the costs because, yes, start saving now, start coming
Mhm.
up with a goal and a plan, and get the whole family together. And
Yeah.
that way it will minimize the one person's expense. And then the
Yep.
children's experience.
Yes.
Melissa, sometimes we forget about the children, but the impact it might have on the children, emotional confusion,
Hmm.
behavioral struggles, and
Mhm.
attachment issues. When you look at the emotional confusions, kids might feel abandoned, they may feel angry or ashamed. The behavior, they might be acting out at school as a way to express, the anger and the shame. And then the attachment issues, rebuilding trust can take time and sensitivity for a lot of children. They're not going to be easily, attaching again. And then age appropriate conversations. Children cannot handle the adult conversations and may not understand. And then consistency, showing up, calling, and keeping promises. That's one thing that is so
Hmm.
important to children because they will remember when mommy or daddy doesn't show up. They will
Oh
remember
yeah.
that. And then family therapy, as we said before, the
Yes.
family dynamics are important
Mhm.
because when your husband came home, was there a shifting of the roles, a role shift?
Mhm.
You weren't expected to carry the household anymore. Here he is
Mhm.
coming back, stepping into that provider,
Yes.
and that's a lot of pressure for him. A lot
Hmm.
of pressure for him.
And see, that's my husband and I had talked about that even while he was in, close to him coming out. I think we talked about it probably the whole time, that I always wanted him to know his role in the family was the head of the household. It was the scriptural version of
Yeah.
husband and wife. That's how I view marriage.
Hmm.
And, that his scriptural roles would be honored in this household. I would
Yeah.
support him. He is the head. We would make decisions together. I would support him and, be his counsel as his
Hmm.
wife. Because husband's function as the priest of the home,
Yeah.
the wife
Yes.
functions as the Levitical priest,
That's right.
and making sure everything is taken care of in the home, just like the priests do the synagogue. And
Hmm.
so that's the role. And so we were very open about discussing his place, so that when he got here, he wouldn't feel like an interloper, because our whole situation was unique. We were a blending family. I'm not even going to say blended,
Yes, I
because we never
remember.
had a chance to be in the same home up until that point. But we were a blending family with his biological son, my biological daughter here, which his son was 16, 17 at the time, and my daughter early 20s. But there was a lot that both of them had to get used to. I had that time with his son, because his son came to live with me probably about 3 months after he went back in. And
Okay.
so his son had been with me the whole time, had gotten to know me. I had gotten to share a lot more about his dad, and stuff that he didn't know that had been kept from him or had been completely misconstrued to him. I kind of helped straighten out. And so he learned how to view his dad through a new lens before he got home.
Yeah.
And then, with my daughter being here, my husband passed away several years ago, she was having to get used to the fact that there's another man in the home.
Yeah.
And, there was a good bit of stuff that happened in the past that I'm not even going to get into, but it was an adjustment for everybody.
Exactly.
And so we talked about it a lot. And, I let my daughter know, you have concerns, let us know.
Mhm.
We're open to listen.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep it in. And the house has done very well kind of blending together. It's had its challenges, yes, but it didn't blow up in our face either, because we were very mindful of trying to counteract those moments to where things could blow up in our face ahead of time.
That's excellent. I think clear discussions about expectations help, house rules, finances, privacy, also setting small goals together.
Yeah.
When your loved one comes home, whether it's your son, daughter, our husband or your spouse, set those goals together. These are the goals that are needed for us to move forward now. Setting and make them, you know, clear goals where they're achievable goals, nothing far fetched, but maybe a 30-day goal,
Mhm.
and that way you can, it doesn't seem like it's long and drawn out. And then, involving a neutral mediator if there's conflict. Get somebody to help. One, two, three.
Yes.
Don't let it drag out. I think
Mhm.
that's going to be important as you start to rebuild relationships. Forgiveness takes time.
It
It takes
does.
time.
It
It's
does.
not automatic, even if both parties want to move forward. Forgiveness takes time.
Mhm.
And that is something that, your loved one can come out and be angry of the situation or whatever. Or you may be feeling angry towards the loved one for all you've been through, all they've been through. And remember that trust is earned. Consistency in behavior, not words, rebuilds credibility. And love may look different. It may not be the same as when your loved one went in. Some relationships change, but can still be meaningful and supportive. So, those are the things that are very important. Practicing
Yeah.
empathy and celebrating the progress together. Hey, we made it 30 days. We achieved this goal. Celebrate those small wins together,
Mhm.
you know? And those things are very important. Lee, can you remember any of those things, celebrating small goals and rebuilding the relationship?
Oh, um, it's a little bit difficult right now because when my son was home and stuff, we were in different states. But I think it is important that you face the fears that you're going through and
Yeah.
work through all those challenges together. And as you were saying, forgiveness takes time. And I know I'm flipping to back to what a different point that you said, but it does take time, and sometimes it takes a long time. It might take forever or so. I even remember just last week, that my son said, "Mom, I'm so sorry for all that I put you through."
Mhm.
And he's been home over 10 years now.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
goes on and stuff, but just make sure that you talk together, love on each other, get the counseling that you need. I think that's so important. The support groups are very important to form or get those positive relationships back together.
Exactly.
It's not easy, but
It's not.
it can be done.
There are a
Yes.
lot of emotions flying around on both sides. And Melissa, I'm sure you can attest to that. All
Mhm.
the emotions, the fears, anxieties, the stressors, just think about all of the things that were floating around.
Mhm,
How did you
Mhm.
get through it?
mhm,
I was grateful and blessed enough to have friends who had been through similar processes that could help me through it, that I could talk
Good.
to on a regular basis. My daughter, very supportive. She and I would sit and we would talk a lot. Um, our son as well. And so I had the connections to where we could kind of really talk things through, and I had the support. Um, but yeah, the big, our son will tell you, because he went with me to pick his dad up. I mean, everything started building. I was great the day before, excited, about ready to jump out of my skin. But that whole morning, the longer it went, the worse I got, to the point he was having to talk me down because I was like on the verge of a panic attack.
Oh my God.
And he's like, "It's going to be okay, Mom. It's going to be okay. He's coming out. He's coming out. Just hang in there." Because we had to wait. I think it was an hour and a half, 2 hours, close to it, sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Because they were a little different. What we were told originally, that I would be able to get out of the car and greet him, I was told I could not do when I got there. I was told that I needed to be there by a certain time that morning. When we got there, "You're too early. You can't be on the grounds right now." So I had to leave, and we rode around. And I mean, we're talking, it was like a 15 or 20 minute. I was there that much early that I couldn't even be on the property. So we had to just ride down the road just to see what was there to kill time to come back. And then the longer time went on, I'm like, "Oh Lord, what's happened? Why is he not coming out? Why?" That anxiety started kicking in, and I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for him not to ever walk out the door, that they had done something, said something, found something, and they were, going to keep him beyond his time. And I'm like, it was a real thing, sitting there waiting on them to come out. So just know, if on the day when you pick your loved one up, that there could be delays, because they only let so many out at a time.
Yes.
And they don't. You're very welcome to, because I mean, for me, I wasn't prepped for that. And that it doesn't take much for that excitement to turn to complete and sheer panic.
Yes, yes, definitely. Well, thank you, Melissa. You have been a world of wealth of information this evening.
Thank you.
I mean, a wealth of information. I mean, you mentioned some good things. Don't press them, for information, and making him the head of the household again, that role, and building that relationship. So thank you so much, as we'll be having you back on here again.
I'll be back anytime.
Thank you, Melissa. As we close this evening, if you're facing, if the time is dwindling and your loved one is have a plan in place now. Don't wait, because there's so many different things that needs to happen, and make it sure that it's a smooth transition for you as well as them.
Yeah.
So remember, coming to the outside world again and navigating it is going to be different. It's like a baby that learns to walk again. So have patience, and that's one thing. Lee, would you like to say anything closing?
Well, just simply, I think you said it all very nicely, as well as Dr. White. Just also remember that each state is very different. So what it looks like for me in the state that I was in may have been very different than the state that the next person was in. Just be patient. Try to exercise some understanding. Don't get yourself aggravated. Just be ready to welcome your loved one home, to love on them, and to help them with the journey afterwards. So, because the journey continues.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Melissa, would you like to offer closing remarks? Anything?
As she mentioned, different states handle it different ways, but I would also like to say too, that same state, the different institutions will do it differently as well.
Yes.
Because, his first release wasn't anywhere like his second one, 2 different institutions. So, what I guess what I'm saying is on a broad spectrum. This was my experience. You should have something similar. They do have, in the state of South Carolina, they do have the release classes. Please make sure your loved one takes that and doesn't just kind of gloss that over and not attend it, because there's a lot of information. Because what a lot of them don't know is, in the state of South Carolina, they're eligible for food stamps. They're, automatically, right the day they're released, they're eligible for food stamps. There's all kinds of helps, grants, and other things that they get the information for, that they can apply for, health, mental health, other things. So make sure they do that release class.
That's awesome. Thank you for that information. And I thank you all for allowing us to come into your hearts, your homes, and your minds, And until we see you again, peace be still. Prayer changes things.
Yes.
Pray without ceasing, and it will happen, but not in our timing. It's got to be in God's timing. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.